Strong men, they don't collapse because they're weak. They collapse when they stop guarding themselves. Strength without discipline will begin to rot. Power without humility will start to corrupt. Then, when you have influence without anyone there to correct you, it starts to become unstable. History is full of lots of strong men who have fallen, and not because of a lack of their abilities, but because of some predictable patterns that we see as people gain power and influence. Here's 7 we'll go through that tend to show up most frequently. If you are seeing any of these things in yourself as we go through them, stop and make the correction immediately, sooner rather than later. So the first pattern that we tend to see show up is that success will begin softening your discipline. And how we see this typically is when you are on the climb, you're nice and sharp, you're training, you're grinding, for that word that gets used too much. You're making proper sacrifices to get to where you want to be. But then once you arrive, you start to relax. You start to maybe skip a workout, have an extra drink, put it on cruise control. Comfort, as you get to the top, becomes more dangerous than the struggle it took to get there. Strong men start to collapse when they feel that they have earned some ease in their life, but you haven't. As success increases, your discipline must continue to increase to stay sharp. Pattern 2, the ego will start to outpace your growth. You get stronger, you earn a little more money, you start to gain some influence, and your ego is growing faster than your character can keep up with. When people start to correct you, you start to get offended. When people give you advice, you treat it as unnecessary. You start protecting your image instead of building things of substance. That is when you start to decay. Strong men fall when their ego begins to outrun their humility. Third pattern, the comparisons become your obsession. You stop building things and you start measuring things. Who's ahead of you? Who's bigger than you? Who's earning more money? Who's getting more attention than me? Your focus gets drained by the comparison. Strong men go out and build. Insecure man stands around and monitors everything. The moment you start looking sideways, you start to drift and you start to go down. Fourth pattern. Isolation will begin to create delusion. As you start to rise, there's a tendency to become more isolated as you gain more power and influence. You start to trust fewer people around you. You start to share less honestly with the people around you. You stop inviting people to offer you feedback and correction on your behaviors. Eventually, there's no one around challenging you, and this is when you start to have delusion set into your life. When there's power and there's no accountability, blind spots will develop. So strong men will start to collapse when no one around them is allowed to confront them. Pattern 5, your appetite will start to overtake your disciplines. Success will only amplify appetites, and you can see this in modern culture all over the place. Success is going to amplify those appetites for sex, money, food, alcohol, validation. You tell yourself, I deserve all of this. And that sentence will destroy more men than failure ever will. Appetite is not evil, but the unregulated appetite can be. Strong men will fall when their impulses begin to outrun their restraint. Pattern 6, avoidance of the hard conversations. In the beginning, you were confronting problems early on, but now you start to delay. You let tensions simmer. You let resentment start to build. You avoid seeking the truth. Why do you do this? Because seeking the truth can be uncomfortable, and strong men will collapse when they prioritize their comfort over gaining clarity. Unaddressed problems will just continue to compound, and that it will always be true. Pattern 7. You're forgetting who built you. You didn't build yourself. You never did it alone. You had mentors, family, structure in your life. Maybe you had faith and community around you. When the strong men begin believing that they are a self-made person, that is when your arrogance will replace your gratitude. Gratitude is protective. The moment you forget who helped you, you're just weakening your own foundation. Every collapse will share the same root, drifting away from your integrity and from where you have set your path. There's not an explosion. There's rarely sudden disasters. It's typically a gradual erosion. You stop sharpening. You stop correcting. You stop inviting friction into your life. And eventually gravity's going to win. Strong men do not fall overnight. They will decay slowly. So you need to guard yourself harder as you continue to grow. With more success, there needs to be increased discipline. You need to invite correction into your life. Control your appetites. Avoid comparing yourself to others. Stay accountable to what you believe in. The bear doesn't disappear once you become strong. It just gets a little quieter, gets a little more patient, gets a little more subtle in your life. If you're rising, if you're on the rise, you need to start tightening your standards. If you see yourself drifting from your standards, immediate correction is the only way you're going to get back on the path. Strong men out there, they're not collapsing because they're lacking in power. They're collapsing because they stop governing their power. And that is our standard. Now hold the line.